Hey, Bob, guess what?
I'm on the edge of my seat. What, Brendan? Could it
It's
be?
another episode. It's another episode of Let's Chat Sales.
Let's Chat Sales.
And for this quick episode, we're going to talk about what happens when people don't answer their phone. Or let's talk about why it is that people don't answer their phone.
Can I set this up real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm having this situation.
Yeah.
I have someone that I've hired to make calls for my company.
Yep.
And they are calling a number of business numbers.
Yep.
They are not getting people answering the business phone number, or
Yep.
they're getting answering machines,
Yep.
which is pretty much being thrown into purgatory.
Yep.
They're getting hang-ups,
Yep.
or they're getting do not call me ever again.
Yep. Sure. Makes sense.
Rarely do they talk to a human being.
Yep.
Rarely do they get to actually do what I would call the cold calling.
Yep.
So I'm coming to you with a genuine help me.
I don't know that I'm going to have a lot of help for you here, because I think we're in a world where people don't answer their phone unless they know who the person is. I just don't know that cold calling works anymore. I think we've gotten to the point where we've done such a job at eliminating trust in the phone, in the possibility of a productive phone call. The only way you have a productive phone call is if it's scheduled or it's someone that you've already established trust with. So
Okay.
I don't know that calling someone out of the blue is going to work.
And I'm coming to your point of view, but if I have someone making calls for me, would you recommend that they leave a voicemail?
Yeah, a couple decades ago, I would say yes. A decade ago,
Today.
maybe.
I'm stuck in 2023
I know,
right
but today, I got to tell you, the only value of a voicemail is they now can be transcribed, and a lot of people can see and read their voicemails as opposed to listen to them. As a general rule, I don't leave voicemails for anybody because I feel like I'm now burdened them. They've got to go somewhere, they've got to log in and look at something, and I'm actually doing them an inconvenience. I'm better off sending them a text or or an email, so I don't leave someone a message.
Well, that's assuming you have their cell phone. Business line, you're not going to leave a voicemail, or you're not going to leave a text message usually.
Right. And then again, this is a little bit like in the category of spam. I sort of think that the days of calling someone out of the blue are just, I think they're behind us.
So what does that mean for a founder?
It means that I think that the way, when you go about doing any kind of marketing, the possibility that someone might read an email is still there, right? But I think the more and more, and this is not my idea, this is like Seth Godin and others, is that you really have to develop some level of trust for them to want to invest time in some interruption. Because what you're doing is you're basically interrupting them. And so I think you're much better off creating an environment where your email gives them the right to schedule time with you. And this is why I go back to this idea of having something like Calendly or something and saying, hey, here's what we do, and here's a link if it fits what you do, and set up a 5 or 10 minute conversation. And the idea is, can someone afford 5 or 10 minutes? Probably, but not 30, and certainly not an hour. And so if you're going to ask someone to invest time with you, you have to make the offer very compelling. And I think you have to make the exit for them really easy. You ask for 10 minutes, here's 10, we're up to 10 minutes, I got to go. And if it's compelling, then you'll figure out some way to say, listen, only offer, we set aside 10 minutes. I don't want to waste your time. If you'd like to talk more, we can book another time or we can keep going, right? But I want to be conscientious and courteous of your time, yada, yada.
Okay. I think this
sense?
will have a chilling effect on the ability of companies to grow.
No, I think growth is independent of whether or not someone answers their phone, right? I think they'll still want to grow. I think they're just going to be much more selective about how they get the information and the sort of interruption they're going to tolerate, right, from somebody else. It's much easier these days for people to find out about you and learn a lot about you through LinkedIn and what your presence on Twitter or Facebook or what have you, and what's on your website and whatever, and your podcast, and those sorts of things, and get a feel for whether or not you're the kind of person they want to work with. And so I think that this whole content forward kind of strategy is at some level, necessary. The one thing I would say is that in my experience, that whole content engine approach can be a monster to feed. It's the beast you have to keep feeding. And so in some ways, I think if you have some description, some in-depth, thoughtful description about who you are, that someone can get a real good feel for you on a website or in a thought paper or on your LinkedIn profile, that may be enough. And you may not have to feed the monster as much. But I think people have to find a way to figure out if you're worth talking to, and then you have to make it really easy for them to set up time to talk to you. That's the way I look at it.
Okay, that was helpful. I appreciate that.
Yeah, does that make sense?
It makes sense. It's disappointing, but I think it's probably the reality.
Well, here's the thing that I find is like with phones nowadays is like, for example, my iPhone, if someone calls me and your phone number is not in my address book, it doesn't ring. I can't even answer the call. It just goes right to voicemail. It goes to some...
Well, you've set that up to do that.
Yeah, but I mean, I think a lot of people have done that. And if I have a call with a customer, an existing customer, I almost invariably schedule 15 minutes or 30 minutes with them. I very seldom call someone out of the blue. Now, It's just the odds of them picking up the phone are tough. I will say also is that historically I've been pretty good at getting along well with the administrative assistants. But again, this is another thing that's largely going away. It's not that many people that have an administrative person or you don't say secretary anymore, but someone that kind of manages them. And
kind of a gatekeeper.
Gatekeeper of sorts. And so even that, I mean, not only does the person answer their own phone, they don't answer their own phone anymore. It goes right to voicemail. It goes into the abyss that you talked about earlier, right?
Yes, so, very much so. Yeah. Oh, well, this is disheartening. So, Brendan, pump me back up with a movie recommendation.
Okay. Well, you mentioned it the other day. Another movie, Tar, right? And this is with Kate Blanchett. Blanchett,
yeah,
right?
You're right. Wait, I'm looking it up.
Yeah. So it is, right?
Looking as we speak, Kate Blanchett. You're right.
Yeah. So, Kate Blanchett. And she is a conductor of a very prestigious symphony.
Orchestra.
I think I had heard somewhere that it was loosely modeled on the Marion Alsop, the
Baltimore conductor.
I don't know if that's true or not. It's not that. I don't know if it is, and if it is, it's not that complimentary in some ways. And long story short, she's phenomenal in it. Blanchett is phenomenal. It's long. It's 2.5 hours long. It could easily have been a half hour shorter. There's some loose ends that are a little weird, but it's not a bad movie, but it's long. So that's my review.
I'm not a big fan of long ones.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so here we go.
This is where I get antsy.
That's right. All right, so Bob, I think that's it for this one. I think we beat the crap out of it.
Whoa, we did. You disappointed me, but then you brought it back with the movie review.
Very good. All right. Until next time, Bob.
Sometime.
You bet. Why not? Let's do it.
All right. Sweet. See ya.
That was another episode of Let's Chat Sales, a quick one, of course, and I hope it was helpful. And if it was, please like and subscribe, and more importantly, share it with your friends. There should be something right here you could point to and click on and try that out. It should be good. It's probably good. Certainly short. It's probably helpful. And thanks for listening or watching.